Some stories aren't just told, they remember you. Tonight, we step into the house that never forgets a soul. But before we open the door, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what waits in the shadows. Because once you enter, there's no turning back. They swore the house had been locked for 70 years, yet tonight its front door was wide open. Eleanor Cross had heard whispers about the Withers estate all her life, a place the townsfolk avoided, claiming it swallowed those who dared enter. Children would dare each other to touch its rusted gates, but no one crossed them. The house wasn't just abandoned, it was alive. And worse, it was said to remember every soul that had stepped inside. On a fog-heavy night, Eleanor's curiosity outweighed her fear. A historian by profession, she had spent months studying the forgotten family who once owned the estate. All records ended abruptly in 1903, as if the Withers family had been erased. No deaths, no descendants, just vanished. Now, as she stood at the threshold, the heavy oak door creaked inward on its own, as though inviting her. A smell of damp earth and something faintly metallic drifted out. The air was colder inside, unnaturally so, making her breath fog in front of her face. The entry hall stretched out like a cavern, lined with portraits. But the strangest thing, every painting's eyes seemed fixed on her. She shivered, her heels clicking against the warped wood as she stepped deeper inside. A sudden slam behind her made her spin. The door had shut. Hard. She ran back, pulled at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged, but then she saw something impossible. The portraits on the wall weren't still anymore. The painted faces blinked. Their expressions shifted, mouths twitching as if they wanted to speak. One figure, a young girl in a lace dress, seemed to be mouthing words over and over. Eleanor squinted, her chest tight. "What are you saying?" she whispered. And then, clear as if spoken aloud, she heard it. "We remember you." Her stomach dropped. She stumbled backward, tripping over the faded rug. But when she caught her balance and looked again, her heart froze. The last portrait at the end of the hall now bore her face. Her hair, her eyes, her very features painted in oils that had cracked with age. And beneath it, in swirling gold script, was a name she had never given the house but now glared back at her. Eleanor Cross in 2025. She wasn't just visiting the house. She had already become part of it. The moment Eleanor saw her painted face staring back at her pulse thundered in her ears. It was impossible. Yet the oil was cracked, aged as though it had been painted a century ago. Her fingers trembled as she reached out, only to feel the texture of old canvas beneath her touch. But then came the sound. A soft shuffle, bare feet, moving behind her. She spun around, but the hallway was empty. Only the flickering chandelier above cast distorted shadows along the peeling wallpaper. Eleanor forced herself to breathe, whispering, "It's just an echo. Old houses make noises." But it wasn't just noise. The sound grew louder, multiplied, now more than one pair of feet. A chorus of steps, some fast, some dragging. Some small like children, all pacing in different rhythms. They came from every direction, yet nothing appeared in the corridor. "Hello?" she called, voice shaking. And then whispers. Dozens of voices overlapping, speaking words she couldn't catch. They seeped from the walls, from the floorboards, even from behind the portraits. Her skin prickled with cold sweat as she tried to make out a single phrase. Finally, one voice cut through the noise, clear, close, right behind her ear. "We are still here." Eleanor jerked forward with a scream, spinning wildly. For the first time she saw them. Faint silhouettes, half-transparent figures drifting along the hall. Men in tattered coats, women in dresses from another century, children clutching dolls with hollow eyes. They didn't look at her. They replayed moments of their lives, endlessly looping, some crying, some fighting, some standing still as if waiting. She clutched her chest, whispering, "They're trapped." At the far end of the corridor, she noticed something unusual. A grand mirror taller than a man, framed in blackened silver. Its surface rippled like water instead of glass. Drawn to it, Eleanor approached slowly, each step accompanied by the echoes of the souls drifting around her. When she finally stood before it, she froze. The reflection wasn't hers. Instead, the mirror showed the Withers family, the parents, the children all standing together. Their faces pale, their mouths sewn shut with black thread, yet their eyes begged her for release. Eleanor raised a hand toward the glass, heart pounding. But before she could touch it, a figure appeared in the reflection behind her, tall, gaunt, cloaked in shadow. She whirled around, The hallway was empty, but the whispers grew sharper, harsher, until one phrase became clear, echoing through the corridor like a chant. Do not turn back. Do not turn back. Do not turn back. And then the mirror cracked. The mirror split with a sound like shattering bone, and Eleanor staggered back as spiderweb cracks spread across its surface. From the fractures leaked a faint mist, curling into the hallway like smoke. She didn't wait to see more. Heart racing, she darted into the nearest doorway, desperate for escape. The room she entered was suffocatingly dark, the kind of blackness that seemed thicker than air. She fumbled for her phone, but the screen wouldn't turn on, dead, though it had been fully charged. The door behind her creaked shut on its own, leaving her sealed inside. Then she felt it. The room was breathing. The walls expanded outward with a low groan, then contracted, as though the house itself inhaled and exhaled. Dust rose with each breath, and the wooden floorboards shivered beneath her feet. Eleanor pressed against the wall, her mind screaming for logic, but there was none. This was no trick of imagination. The entire chamber was alive. "Hello?" she whispered into the darkness. A faint voice answered, muffled, as if spoken through layers of earth. "You shouldn't have come here." Eleanor froze. "Who's there?" The air grew heavy. Shapes began to emerge as her eyes adjusted. Furniture covered in white sheets. A broken chandelier on the floor. A grand piano in the corner. She crept closer, drawn by a strange sound. The piano keys were moving on their own. At first, the notes were scattered, clumsy, like a child banging at random. But soon a slow and deliberate melody took shape. Sad, mournful, a song that seemed to mourn centuries of forgotten lives. Each note made the walls pulse deeper, the breathing of the house synchronizing with the melody. Eleanor whispered, "What do you want from me?" The piano stopped. A long silence hung in the room, so deep she could hear her own blood rushing in her ears. Then slowly, the dust-coated sheets slid from the furniture as though pulled by invisible hands. The chairs straightened. The chandelier reattached itself, its crystals glowing faintly. The room was restoring itself. Eleanor backed away, terror gnawing her stomach, until she collided with the far wall. Except it wasn't solid anymore. The wall yielded beneath her touch like flesh. Warm. Beating. She screamed, stumbling forward. But the floor rippled beneath her feet like skin. The entire room pulsed, alive, tightening its grip around her. Then with a sickening groan, the house whispered in many voices at once, a chorus of the dead. One breath, one soul, one memory more. The chandelier light flared, and every object in the room turned its gaze toward her. The chandelier's glow burst like a dying star, plunging Eleanor into sudden blackness. The room seemed to gasp one final breath before the walls stiffened again. Solid and cold, she bolted toward the door, fumbling with the handle until it groaned open. The hallway outside was different now. Longer. Darker. The portraits that once hung on the walls were gone, replaced with nothing but bare, rotting wood. The air was heavier, like a storm pressing down, and at the far end, she saw it, a staircase spiraling upward into shadows. Something compelled her forward. Each step closer felt like walking through water, her body dragged down by unseen weight. Still, she reached the first stair and placed her foot on it. The wood groaned, yet it held. She began to climb. At first, the ascent seemed ordinary. 10 steps, 20, 30. But when she looked down, the floor below was gone. The hallway, the door, the house behind her vanished. Beneath her stretched nothing but a black void, endless and empty. Panic clawed at her chest. She turned upward. The stairs kept winding, higher and higher, disappearing into the dark. She had no choice but to keep climbing. As she ascended, she heard voices again. But these weren't whispers. They were screams, some shrill, some guttural, some so full of despair they twisted her stomach. She realized each scream came from below. Souls, trapped in the void she had left behind, clawing at the stairs they could never reach. Her legs ached, her breath grew ragged. She couldn't tell how long she had been climbing. Minutes, hours. The staircase bent her sense of time. Every time she thought she neared the top, it curved again, stretching into eternity. Finally, she stopped, leaning against the railing that wasn't really wood but bone. Long, thin human bones stacked together. She recoiled, her hands slick with the grease of age. But as she did, she noticed something carved into the bone rail. Words. Dozens of names etched deep, names of people who had once climbed this same stair. At the very bottom, fresh and raw, was her own, Eleanor Cross. No, I'm not part of this, she whispered, shaking her head. But when she blinked, the bone railing changed. No longer names, but faces. Dozens of them, frozen in horror, their eyes locked onto hers. And then the staircase shifted. The steps began to move, spiraling faster, dragging her upward against her will. She clutched the railing, but the faces writhed beneath her touch, mouths opening in silent screams. At the top of the spiral, a faint door appeared. Its frame glowed faintly red, pulsing like a heartbeat. And from behind it came a voice, calm, cold, and waiting. "You've climbed far enough, now remember." The glowing door pulsed like a living heart, each throb echoing through Eleanor's chest. She hesitated, but the staircase behind her groaned, crumbling into the black void. She had no choice, forward or fall into nothing. Her hand trembled as she touched the door. It was warm, almost feverish, and when she pushed, it swung open without resistance. Inside was a vast chamber, circular and domed, lit by a dim red glow that had no source. The walls weren't stone or wood, but a tapestry of faces, thousands of them, pressed into the surface as though trapped within the structure itself. Eyes rolled, mouths gaped, and some whispered while others screamed silently. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of countless lives. Eleanor stepped inside, every breath shallow. At the center of the room stood a single chair, carved from black wood and bone, facing away from her. Someone sat in it. Their figure was tall, draped in shadow, motionless. Eleanor's voice cracked. "Who are you?" The figure did not move, but the faces on the walls spoke as one. A layered voice made of thousands. "We are the house. We are every soul who ever entered. And now, so are you." Her knees weakened. "No, I'm not staying. I won't be part of this." The figure in the chair finally stirred. Slowly, impossibly slowly, it turned to face her. But there was no face, only a mirror. A polished, gleaming surface where features should be. And in that mirror, Eleanor saw herself. Not as she was, but as she would be. Hollow-eyed, faded. Her mouth sewn shut like the Withers family in the cracked mirror. She stumbled backward, heart hammering, but the chamber shifted. The walls contracted, pressing closer. The faces leaned forward, their whispers growing louder. "Join us. Join us. Remember, remember." The mirror-faced figure rose from the chair and extended a hand. Its arm stretched unnaturally long, reaching toward her no matter how far she backed away. The ground split beneath her feet, revealing the void again, black and endless. She teetered on the edge, her scream catching in her throat. "Why me?" she cried. The voices answered in unison. "Because every house needs to remember. And every memory needs a keeper." The hand finally touched her chest. In an instant, cold fire raced through her body, freezing her lungs, silencing her scream. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw was her reflection in the faceless figure's mirror, her soul pulled from her eyes, absorbed into the glass. Then darkness. The next morning, the Withers estate stood silent, its windows dark, its door firmly shut. But inside the entry hall, a new portrait hung on the wall. Eleanor Cross. And her painted eyes followed every visitor who dared to step inside. The house has taken another memory, and now it remembers Eleanor forever. If you want to hear more tales that will haunt your nights and crawl into your dreams, subscribe now. The next story is already waiting, and it remembers those who dare to return.